Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome to my IG Live on this particular Wednesday. You hear a little bell in the background. That's the doorbell here to Agape. Someone's seeking to come in. But we're just getting everything ready right now. And while we're pulling in Dr. Molina, let me tell you who she is. Dr. Molina Abdullah is a recognized expert on race, gender, class, and social movements. She was among the original group of organizers that convened to form Black Lives Matter and continues to serve as a Los Angeles chapter leader. She's professor and former chair of Pan-African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles. She's the co-host and co-producer of the weekly radio program, Beautiful Struggle, which airs on KPFK, part of the Pacifica Radio Network, the same network that I'm on every Friday at 1 p.m. And so we're going to be pulling her on in just a moment, but I just wanted to say welcome. We're living in some interesting times, obviously, and we want to get some, for those of you who are unclear, we want to develop a level of clarity around Black Lives Matter. We're going to give a level of clarity around just what's happening right now in the world of great changes. You've heard me speaking over the last month about this being a pivotal time in human history, where for probably the first time, the rest of the world is listening to many of the things that people of color have been saying for a long period of time. And that is the injustice, and that is the profiling, that is the racism, the systemic racism, and not that in any way seeking to be victims, but there has been a victimization, and there's a great change afoot that we want to be able to articulate and be about. I'm optimistic because I'm aware of what an optimist is. An optimist is not an individual who doesn't see that there are issues or problems that need to be dissolved. But an optimist is an individual that knows behind every issue there are solutions, and there are ways to those solutions. And so we're going to go live right now with Dr. Molina Abdullah, professor, Cal State University, Los Angeles. Molina, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm in a parking lot. I'm good. Glad to be with you.
I was getting ready to say, it looks like you're in your car.
Yeah. I was trying to get in and out the bank. When I talked to you on the phone, I was in the banking, thinking I was on my way out, but things happen.
Yeah, things, it was a delay, not a denial, right?
Exactly. So maybe this is so that my kids won't run through the live shot. Maybe that's why I'm in the car.
So you want to continue our conversation while you're in your car? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. I'm not driving. I'm just sitting.
And okay, and you have three. You have 2 or 3 children.
I have 3. All of them are
your mother.
We were at the old building, super active in the Agape Youth stuff. Yeah.
Right. Because they look like you.
Yeah, they do.
I see that face right now, and I know exactly who they are.
Right.
How old are they now?
They're 10, 13, and 16. And Tandiwe, who's 16, is on her way off to Howard University. She graduated early and is headed to Howard in just a couple of weeks.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
My grandson, Shay, wants to go to Howard as well. I just introduced you a little bit, but let me just let people know that I'm talking with Dr. Molina Abdullah, a recognized expert on race, gender, class, social movements. You were among the original group of organizers that convened to form the Black Lives Matter, and you continue to serve as the Los Angeles chapter leader, professor and former chair of the Pan-African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles, and you have your own radio show on KPFK, Beautiful Struggle. What day does that come on?
It's on Tuesday nights at 7.
Tuesday night at 7. And you just discovered, everyone, that she's a mother of 3. And if you can tell by our conversation, you just discovered that she's been attending Agape International for a long period of time as well. So that's
Yeah,
Dr. Molina.
for like 20 years.
Now, you were part of the group that helped form what is now known as Black Lives Matter. How did that come about? What type of people came together to have this idea, and why the name Black Lives Matter? I'm asking this for other people because people have a certain lack of understanding sometimes behind that particular name. So what came together to pull this movement, to pull this name together, to pull this movement together? What happened?
Sure. So July 13th, 2013, so we're almost at our 7-year anniversary. People will remember that George Zimmerman was acquitted for the murder of Trayvon Martin, 17-year-old boy killed in Sanford, Florida. And many of us all across the country were outraged by that acquittal. Los Angeles in particular erupted. We poured out into the streets. I remember when I got word of the acquittal, because there was something different about this one, right? We thought that Zimmerman would be convicted. A lot of us were saying, we weren't blind to the fact that we hadn't gotten justice for Margaret Mitchell or Sean Bell or Amadou Diallo. We weren't blind to that fact, but those were killings at the hands of actual police. If you remember, Zimmerman was only a cop in his own mind. He also wasn't even white. He was Latino. He identified as white. And so I think that we thought those things could be working for the benefit of Black people, right? That it wasn't actually the police that killed him. And so we thought we might get a conviction. And if you remember, all the evidence comes forth about how he stalked this child and then really instigated this attack on him after dispatchers and everyone were saying, don't, telling him to back off. And so we saw all this evidence come out through the broadcasted trial. And so, we were expecting a conviction, and then we didn't get it. And there was something about Trayvon's spirit, right? When we saw his face on the news, President Obama had said if he had a son, he would look like Trayvon. And at the time, my son was 3 years old, and he actually looked like Trayvon. He looked like Trayvon, not like theoretically. He had that same bright face, all of that. And so I think I, like a lot of other people across the country, just felt overwhelmed at the sense of injustice, and we exploded and we poured out into the streets. I had called together some of my other mother friends, and we called ourselves a Mama Brigade, and we met up in Leimert Park. And before there were gates around Leimert Park, Black folks knew where to go when we were upset or we wanted to voice rage or even celebrate. I think about, the election of Barack Obama in 2008, right? We knew to go to Leimert Park. We didn't need an Instagram post, right?
Right. It was in the wind.
It was in the wind. It's what we did. And so we went to Leimert, and there were already hundreds of people in the park, and it grew to thousands. And for 3 days, people will remember that Los Angeles basically shut down. I called out some of my students from Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA, and we marched steadily for 3 days. And on that third day of protest, I got a text message from one of the most beautiful, powerful, visionary sisters that I know. Her name is Patrice Cullors. And we had been in this Black organizing space, community organizing space together. And that message, I always imagine that it read like a message from the Underground Railroad. It said, meet at St. Elmo Village at 9 p.m. So this was on the third day, July 15th.
St. Elmo's Village.
St. Elmo Village. And if people have not been there, it is a simply magical space. It is
my own stomping grounds. My own stomping grounds.
Is it really?
When they come from out of town. I live 2 blocks away from St. Elmo. That's where I grew up.
Oh, I don't know why I've never seen you in the neighborhood then, because I'm right up the hill.
Yeah, I grew up over there on Orange Drive.
Yeah. I
And so
love St. Elmo.
I
It's
take
just,
people there all the time. When people come in from out of town and I want to show them some things, I always take them to see St. Elmo's Village.
yeah. Yeah, so we met up there. There were about 30 people. And we didn't know that Patrice had been in conversation with Alicia Garza about how to build a movement, not just a moment. And we spent hours in that courtyard, you know, the St. Elmo Village courtyard, which feels like an African village, right?
Right.
And we pledged to build a movement, not a moment. And that was 7 years ago. And since then, we've been organizing, and our lives have really been transformed. And prayerfully, we've also helped to transform the way in which the world works and Black freedom struggle is seen and embraced in not just this country, but throughout the world.
Throughout the world. There are a couple other things I want to talk about. One, people don't understand the meaning of Black Lives Matter. And I broke it down a little bit a few weeks ago in one of my services, but I wanted to come from you because we still have people kind of tone deaf, saying things like, well, all life matters, and things of that particular nature. And of course, Black Lives Matter does not mean other lives don't matter. It means that our lives haven't mattered for so long that we have to say that. So
Absolutely.
break that down in your own way. Yeah.
So it's Black people who are intentionally and systematically and deliberately targeted for demise, right? This country is built on the stolen land of indigenous people and the stolen labor and lives of Black people. And so if you look at virtually every single economic, social, and political measure, Black people are at the very, very bottom. And especially when you talk about state-sanctioned violence, Black people are at the bottom. And so it's, you know, there's no invisible only in front of Black Lives Matter. However, I think what sums it up the best for me is there was a cartoon that was released, I think it was in 2014, that was very simple. It showed a house on fire next to a house that wasn't on fire. And it had a firefighter dousing the house that was not on fire, and the caption read, "All houses matter." Right? And so we have to remember that Black people are the house on fire, right? And so we got to douse the house on fire. It doesn't mean the house next to it doesn't matter, but we also know that you protect the house next to it by dousing the house that's on fire, right? And so we got to start with Black people, getting Black people but free. And then when Black people are free, everybody gets free. But until Black people get free, nobody's free.
Absolutely. One of the ways that I broke it down was Black Lives Matter also. As you were saying, it's not Black Lives Matter only, it's Black Lives Matter also. Because when you look at the prison industrial system, mass incarceration, injustice of the legal system, police brutality, you know, Black people are under that iron foot of oppression way more than any other people in America and around the world. So it's Black Lives Matter too. So people that want to shout, particularly at this time, it's out of timing, to shout all lives matter, are a little tone deaf to what this moment and what this movement is bringing. People are waking up finally to what people of color have been living under for a long period of time. People are finally hearing it based on the public execution of George Floyd and a few other things that happened right before that with, you know, Ahmaud Arbery and Rihanna, and, you know, people are finally waking up. So we don't want individuals to take the moment and say all lives matter. We know all lives matter, but Black Lives Matter also. And this is a moment, as you said, that the house is on fire. Systemic racism has been going on for a long period of time. And now that people can hear it, and it's not just in America, people all over the world are hearing it. It jumped countries, nations, rising up and saying racism must be dismantled. It cannot be a part of the fabric of any culture any longer. What does that do for you? I mean, you've been in this work long period of time, but for the last 7 years, and then finally, you know, people around the world, and not just Black people, but people of all shades and all hues and all cultures and all religious backgrounds and all political affiliations are saying this has got to be dismantled. I mean, what does that do to your psyche right now?
Yeah, I think that one of the things I actually learned from you and from Agape is this living in a space of gratitude, right? And just being grateful. So from 2014 to about 2016, Black Lives Matter did get a lot of recognition and visibility. And then the current occupant of the White House took office. And almost immediately and completely, there was what I call the whiting out of Black Lives Matter, right? So no matter what happened, no matter how horrific the killing, and I'm thinking about, for instance, the murder of Grishario Mack, who was killed by LAPD inside the Crenshaw Baldwin Hills Mall at peak shopping time without even bothering to evacuate the mall first. This father of two who asked for help as he was having a mental health challenge, was assassinated by LAPD officers, and it was done on camera. And the officers, after they had shot him and he wasn't dead, stood over his body and shot down into him to make sure he was dead, right? There was almost no news coverage. Almost no one other than people involved know Grishario Mack's name, right? I think about Kenneth Ross Jr., who was killed the day after Grishario, and Rowley Park, who was hunted as if he was prey, right? And he was murdered again on camera. I think about Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, who was killed in Torrance within a span of 15 seconds, right? I think about people like Michelle Shirley, who was this mother who was murdered in her car, even though shooting into a moving vehicle is illegal, right? And nothing happened other than us rising up and protesting. And a lot of times, you know, one of the first things that we do, Black Lives Matter is a spiritual movement as well as a racial and social justice movement. So
Yeah.
when we hear about somebody who's killed, the immediate thing that we do is come out and pour libation and do a prayer circle with the community and then get community testimonials. What did the community see happen? Right.
Right.
And so, you know, oftentimes we come out and we're literally standing on the spilled blood of our people. Right.
Yes.
And we'll be out and sometimes it'll be 10 people. Right. And so for years, this went on this way. And it would be a little frustrating when we'd be in front of the district attorney's office saying, you know, now we're up to 609 people being killed since Jackie Lacey took office, killed by police since Jackie Lacey took office. And she chooses not to prosecute any of those police officers, right? Every single officer is still walking the streets, right? And so sometimes as we'd be protesting, we'd be there with families and there'd be only a couple dozen of us. And we'd become frustrated that more people weren't coming out, that news media wasn't covering this, that especially the names of those killed in Los Angeles wasn't resonating nationally. But then this moment happened and, you know, everything cracked wide open. And all of the things that we were saying are now the clarion calls of the movement. We've been saying defund the police. We've been saying reimagine public safety. And now that's what's resonating globally. So I'm grateful for those years that we spent with it. Sometimes, you know, our large groups would be a couple hundred and sometimes it would be just a couple dozen. I'm grateful for that because it's allowed us to build the movement in a really sustainable and beautiful way where we're very closely connected and we know what it is we're envisioning.
Absolutely. You articulated that very powerfully, and I see people writing, really saying, keep up the good work. We need Black Lives Matter. One of the things that I shared at Agape was that three things came together. There was, first of all, the field of people that have been praying, meditating, visioning, and working for years. You had the fatigue of people of color that had been under the iron foot of oppression for so long. And then the spark plug of a man being publicly executed and police officers just walking away as if they were having a picnic in the park. When those three things came together, and it created the moment that you're describing, in which now has gone worldwide. And so, obviously, Black Lives Matter is a spiritual movement. And I'm going to cover a couple of things. One, for some reason, Black Lives Matter was put on a terrorist, like it was a terrorist organization. It was listed as a terrorist organization in certain states. And Black Lives Matter is far from being a terrorist organization. It's a spiritual organization that's bringing about information, transformation, and calling forth justice where there has been injustice. That's the antithesis of a terrorist organization. That's a justice organization and a spiritual organization. But you have known that you've been called a terrorist organization, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We know that, but we also know who's designating us as such, right? That
Right.
the
Right.
Black Identity Extremist Report was commissioned out of the Trump administration. So, one of the things actual purveyors of hate do is try to label other people the purveyors of hate, right? Their distractions, their, what do they call it? Projection, right? So, there's no disputing that the current occupant of the White House and his administration are the purveyors of hate, right? They embody hate. And so, of course, they see those of us, our work is deeply rooted in deep and abiding love for our people. That's where this comes from. None of us are paid for this work. This isn't, a career. This is the work that we do because Spirit calls us to do this work. This is, Mama Harriet Tubman saying, it's up to this generation to pick up my work. Ida B. Wells is saying, pick up my work. Martin Luther King is saying, pick up my work. This is a sacred duty. And so those who refuse to heed sacred duty, those who really are caught up in ego, try to dismantle and disparage those of us who are actually doing work that God calls us to do. And I just want to add, I love your 3 points that set up this moment. And if I can, I'd just like to add 2 other things.
Please.
You're right. The prayer and meditation work is hugely important. And I feel it. We feel it. It's one of the things that protects us, right? So if people can't get out to the protests that we do every single Wednesday, that's okay. From 3 to 5, we need you to pray and meditate, right? We need you to make sure that we're protected. I recently had the district attorney's husband pulled a gun on me and pointed it at my chest and threatened to shoot me. People can see it on our Instagram page. And one of the things that happened in that moment is we had just finished our libation, prayer, meditation, and land acknowledgement. And as he put the gun to my chest and said the words, "I will shoot you," all that could come out of my mouth was a very chipper, "Good morning." And when I look back at the video, I'm going, why wasn't I scared? But it really
Where did that
was,
come from? Where did that come from, Molina? Where did that come from?
It was absolutely the presence of Spirit. It absolutely was me being taken over by the divine, and it would not let me be afraid, right?
I want you to break down so that, because people are watching this from all over the world, what city and what district attorney, so they know exactly what happened.
So the district attorney of the county of Los Angeles, her name is Jackie Lacey. And we are trying to unseat her right now. She's up for her 3rd term. She is on the ballot for November 3rd. We already forced her into a runoff. Last term, she ran unopposed. This term, we said we're not going to let that happen. And so she does have an opponent and was forced into a runoff. And we are in front of her office every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, demanding that she go. Right. And so we're using, again, spiritual work. We're also standing with the families of those who are killed by police. And usually by the thousands, we're there saying that she has to go, at least during this moment.
And that was her husband that pulled the gun on you.
That was her husband.
A non-violent, unarmed woman protesting. Her husband pulled the gun on you and put it towards your chest.
Yes.
I just want people to be clear about that.
It was her husband.
You weren't walking around with a weapon.
Huh?
Yeah. You weren't walking around with a weapon.
Me. He could see. She knows who I am. He knows who I am. you know, I'm a mom of 3 kids. You know, they know that I'm unarmed, right? And they could see us on. They have a Ring doorbell system. They could see us on the camera. They could hear us outside doing our chants and prayers, and so they knew exactly who we were.
Yeah,
And
I just wanted people to be clear, because there are people who live in LA and obviously they know about this and they live in the United States, but you're being viewed now by people all over the world. And so I wanted them to be very clear. This took place in Los Angeles in
right,
2020, and it was the district attorney's husband that put a gun to your chest. I just wanted people to be clear about that.
yeah,
The other thing is, what people are talking about, I want you to bring clarity to what defund the police department means, because people are afraid that it means so many different things and people are running off on different tangents about the meaning of it. What does defund the police mean to you?
right. So let me just make those last 2 points if I can,
Oh,
and then
please,
get to that.
please.
So the 2 things I would add to what you said, right? Absolutely, the you know, the prayer and meditation that had been happening. Absolutely, you know, the spirit of the murder of George Floyd. And then there was one more thing that you had. One
Well, I'm talking about the oppression of the fatigue of Black people, the
uh,
long years of systemic racism and oppression in which nothing was done.
absolutely. The 2 things that I would add is, one, that we had been organizing for 7 years already. So there was an
Yes,
infrastructure in place. There was a vision, a very well fleshed out vision in place. And then the second thing, and a mechanism, right? So we had Black Lives Matter. There were people, thousands of people who were already committed to this cause. The second thing I would add is that George Floyd represents one tremendous and very heavy straw, but there were thousands and thousands of straws already on the camel's back. And
right,
so, you know, that was the last straw. But there were other straws beneath him who also, and I believe that they can steal bodies, but they cannot steal spirits. And so, just
right.
as George Floyd's spirit is calling out for justice, so is the spirit of Waukesha Wilson and Keisha Michael and Marquentin Sandlin and all of the other many thousands of people calling out for justice, spirits calling out for justice. So I would just add those 2 things. Um, and
Absolutely.
and then to get to this question of defund the police, um, I think it gets to, and this is where my professor hat goes on, right? Is
Yeah.
that when
People
we,
need to know that you are a professor. You are Dr. Molina.
yes, um, I study this, right? And so when we study the history of policing, it's really important that we understand that policing in this country evolves from a vestige of chattel slavery, slave catching, right? And so
Yes.
the group that we now call police were once slave catchers, were once patty rollers that literally put targets on the backs of Black people and returned our foremothers and forefathers to their so-called owners, or did whatever they pleased with them. And
Right.
so when we think about that, as ridiculous as it would be to say reform chattel slavery, that's the same ridiculousness that it is to say we can tinker around the edges of a fundamentally unjust system. So what we say is, just like chattel slavery had to be abolished, the form of policing that we have in this country also has to be abolished. And the way that we do that is take away their money. We don't believe in putting good money after bad and saying, you know, let's give them more training. We don't believe in saying, let's give them better equipment. We don't believe in saying, you know, what if we just stick the word community in front of it? Then it'll be better. No, policing is fundamentally oppressive and targets Black people. So let's take their money, let's be imaginative, and let's also look at the data and say what actually keeps communities safe. What keeps communities safe is making sure that the universal needs of people are met. Everybody deserves to have housing, health care, mental health services, quality after school programs, parks, an environment that's protected and nourished, right? Everybody deserves those things, right? We also need to think about what does justice mean? Justice doesn't mean locking people in cages. Justice means helping people to step into the full potential of who they can be. And so, what kinds of transformative justice practices can we usher in, right? We know that in places like Newark, New Jersey, where one of my best friends on this planet, my dear brother Akila Sherrills, who's from Watts, has been enlisted to
I know him.
engage. I know he was honored at Agape a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
Akila has worked with the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Raz Baraka, who's the son of Amiri Baraka, the brother of Dominique DePrima, and is absolutely visionary in his approach, has decided to pull money out of policing, not completely, but start to pull money out of policing, a defunding, and invest those dollars in community care teams that are from the neighborhood that can say, well, here, this is what this group of people needs. So and so just got laid off. If they got laid off, they may not have food. They may not be able to pay rent. How do we support this person? There's a conflict brewing because these two people are dating the same guy, right? If they haven't
Right.
agreed to date the same guy, maybe we need some of the grandmothers to intervene and say, let's intervene before a conflict arises, right? This is the kind of work that's being done in Newark. And when we see these kinds of investments made, we also see the plummeting of crime. So this is
Yes.
what we want to see happen. And this is what's going to happen. We just had a major victory last week. Our young people won a significant defunding of police in schools. And we know police, if there's anywhere they don't belong, it's in schools. And what they want is a 35% cut to LA School Police, which is the largest school police department in the country, and the removal of police from campuses. So the police still exist. The remainder of them have to be on the perimeter of the school. They don't get to terrorize the kids in schools. And so that's what we mean by defunding the police. We mean, maybe police don't need to respond to car collisions. Why do we need people with guns and badges to take measurements and statements? Maybe that should be the work of the Department of Transportation. If this had been in place when Grishario Mack was killed, we could have dispatched mental health workers to help him come down from the challenge, rather than putting in people with assault rifles who killed him inside that mall, right, and caused far more damage than good. So we say defund the police and reimagine public safety.
Right. Yeah, you broke that down powerfully because people get nervous, but you have a very powerful, progressive way that what the money's going to be used for. So it's not just defunding the police, it's actually developing progressive programs that deal with mental health issues, that deal with human rights issues, things that the police aren't even equipped to handle. Right. Obviously, that's not the first person that they killed that had a mental health issue. Many people who've had mental breakdowns or were acting kind of weird, their medicine hadn't taken their medicine, would end up being shot and killed by police officers. So they're not equipped to handle those kind of mental health issues. That somebody else is equipped to handle that. And those other people need to be funded to be able to handle those issues so that the police can do other things, but not those things. So you broke that down very clearly. So people just get nervous when they hear defund the police. No, there's a plan behind it. There's a progressive, and not only progressive plans, but it's time to, as you said, and as I like to say, we have to reimagine what it looks like. It's time to reimagine what the whole things look like and begin to build it upon solid ground rather than on the old ways that things had been going on for years. And you took us back in history that policing came into manifestation as slave catchers. So the soil is rotten. The seed is rotten. See? And we need new seeds and new soil. We have to reimagine the whole thing. So I absolutely appreciate you breaking that down for us.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. And you I just have to just applaud you for the great work you're doing. It's as you said, it's a calling. It's not a career. It's not a job. It's a calling. And what I want to say, and what I talked a little bit about last week, is that this is not a time in history where you can say, you're neutral. You can't say, if you're white, I'm not a racist. You know, you have to actually find out what is your calling to help deconstruct that which is unjust. You know,
Right.
and everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. So,
Right.
you know, everybody has something to do to not only deconstruct that which isn't working, but to begin to imagine what does work, and not get caught up in the status quo, business as usual, but what is my place at this time in human history where everything is up for change? What is my role to make a difference? And
Right.
that's what we're inviting people to do. And even though we talk about the occupant of the White House as an individual who has assisted in bringing out the individuals that are still into racial supremacy and things of that particular nature, the issues that we're talking about are human issues. They're not left or right issues. They're human issues. It's about humanity, how we treat each other, how we love each other, how we take care of each other, how we protect each other. It's way beyond the politics of left and right. It's the politics of the heart.
Right.
Compassion and justice, you see.
Right.
So yeah, you've broken it down powerfully for us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I was somewhat heartened by the movements that have broken out all over the world, which means this thing is not going back in the bottle anytime soon. There has to be major changes because the people are informed now, all across the board, black, white, brown, yellow, everyone's informed. And so now what are we going to do with this information? Yeah.
Well, that's what they say. Once you're awakened, you can only pretend to be asleep.
You can only pretend to be asleep. I love it.
Right.
So as we're coming, I appreciate your time. I know you're in the car. Any last words that you want to share with us?
Sure. I just want to echo what you said, that everyone can do something. And, you know, there's three things that we really need people to do. We need people to use their voice. And so that means amplifying what you heard, right? When people say, you know, defund the police is crazy, then say, well, they've been defunding our education forever. And did you say that's crazy? Because we need to be more vocal about that, right? Use your voice, amplify what it is that you've heard and that you believe, right? Use your body. If you are able-bodied, if you don't have pre-existing conditions, if you are not in a high-risk category, we need to remember, just like COVID-19 is a public health pandemic, the murder of Black people at the hands of police is a public health pandemic. And so we need you to come out every Wednesday. That means today at 3 o'clock. We are at 211 West Temple, demanding that Jackie Lacey go. And we're standing with the families of those who've been killed by police. So I know today, you know, we'll have the family of Groshario Mack there. We usually have the family of Waukesha Wilson there, the family of Daniel Hernandez and Eric Rivera and Jesse Romero, and usually dozens of families. They need your support. If you're able to come, please come. And then the last thing that we need is your resources. And by resources, I absolutely mean dollars. So we need your dollars, but resources aren't confined to dollars. One of the things I find most beautiful about this moment since George Floyd's murder is people pitching in however they can. So we come out to the protests and people have brought out cold water, right? People have brought out face masks. People have brought out hand sanitizer, right? All of these things are there. So these are resources that you can bring into the movement. We need places to meet, right? We're not a nonprofit organization with a building. Our monthly meetings, which happen on the second Sunday, meaning this Sunday, at 7 p.m. We have those every second Sunday at 7 p.m. And it's usually places like Youth Justice Coalition or churches. Like this week, we're meeting at Tree of Life Missionary Baptist Church. They open up their doors and say, you can use our building for your work. And so those are the things we need people to bring. And of course, as you underscored, Reverend Michael, you know, we need your spiritual energy. Please pray for our constant protection. Please pray for the victory that is sure to come as long as we struggle. And so those are the things that we need. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for what you've given me as my spiritual home, but also for recognizing that justice work is spiritual work and
Absolutely.
bringing me here today. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Two things. One, a couple of people are typing in. They're asking where can they donate? They're asking you online right now.
Great. I'm glad you're asking. Please go to blmla.org, blmla.org, and it'll bring you to our GoFundMe link. If you need to make a tax deductible donation, you can go to cangress.org and click Black Lives Matter Los Angeles from their drop down menu. We're a project of the Los Angeles Community Action Network, which is online as cangress.org. But blmla.org has all of that information. Please don't Google it. Some of you have seen these news reports about fake Black Lives Matter GoFundMes. If it doesn't have our GoFundMe has my picture on it. If it doesn't have my picture on it, if it doesn't have the Black Lives Matter Los Angeles seal, unfortunately, it's a fake account. Please don't donate there. Go to blmla.org, and that's the official one.
Absolutely. I appreciate your presence. One of the things I said recently was that this is not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's a way of life.
Absolutely.
Justice work is a way of life. Building the beloved community is a way of life. Being an architect of what's possible is a way of living. It's not a marathon. It's morphed into a way of living that all of us have to find their place in building a world that works for the highest and best within us all. Dr. Molina, thank you for the justice work you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time today.
Okay. Take care.
Give your girls my love, okay?
I will.
One day we'll all be meeting back in the sanctuary again. I'll be able to give them a hug.
I would love that. Bye-bye.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
So everyone, we were with Dr. Molina Abdullah, powerful voice, Black Lives Matter. You heard from her, obviously, that it's a calling, a powerful way of living that she's involved with. You've heard that what Black Lives Matters means. It's not Black Lives Matter only. It's that Black Lives Matter because for so long, Black lives have not mattered. You've heard that it is not a terrorist organization. It is a deeply spiritual organization with a vision of justice work. So all the things that people like to spin about Black Lives Matter, the meaning of it, as well as the movement itself, you have to really do your own research, as I brought her in front of you today, to discover that they do powerful, meaningful, powerful work, and work that is necessary. People of color have been under the iron foot of oppression for so long. And I also want to say that people of color aren't looking to be known as victims. I personally do not see myself as a victim of anything. I may have been victimized at times in my life. I may have been called names. I may have been under the attack of racism as I have, but I don't see myself as a victim in any way. I see myself as an individual that is seeking to uplift, heal, inspire, transform, and carry a powerful vision of what's possible for our nation and our world. So I don't wear the hat of being a victim at all. I don't deny things have happened, but I'm not a victim. I'm an individual that is here for the power and the presence and the love of God to use me to bring people together to build the kind of just global society. And that is why so many people attend Agape International, because when you come to Agape International, everyone is here. All faiths, colors, hues, sexual orientation, we're all here seeking to love and appreciate each other in a way that builds a loving, compassionate, generous society. And so this is what we're all about. Thank you guys for tuning in. I see some of you texting, you're asking earlier about my app. Yes, you can get my app. Just go to michaelbbeckwith.tv, michaelbbeckwith.tv, and subscribe to it. Then go to the App Store and get the app. Beckwith Inspires, MBB. You can get the app for free. There'll be a lot of freemiums on there. And you can also subscribe at $2.99 if you want to get some of the other things. But the app's going to be used for, I'm going to do some meditation retreats since we're not able to meet each other in person right now. I'm going to have inspiration on there. I'm going to have education on there. I'm going to have affirmation. I'm going to have so much on the app. So you might as well get it now while it's new. michaelbbeckwith.tv. Subscribe, go to the App Store and get it. If you want to go to my website and get that information, you go to michaelbeckwith.com. Most of you probably know that I'm here for 3 services every Sunday, agapelive.com or my Facebook page, and you can watch the services live. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go now. Some of you were a part of the meditation service that we do every day on Facebook, Agape's Facebook page, every day at 12 Pacific time. Some of you were at our morning prayer time, affirmative prayer, every day at 8 a.m. Pacific time on Agape's Facebook page. So we're here to serve. We're here to serve the higher calling, to answer the calling of our higher nature, to become the next great vision version of ourselves, individually and collectively as a global community. Peace and blessings. We'll see you Sunday.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.